what happens with this chat, and by all means, ask us some questions, and we'll try our best to answer. So thank you for joining me, Lynn. It was really good that you decided to kind of be brave and come on to Zoom and join in the chat. We had a wee test run on Zoom yesterday for your first experience.
Yes.
So first of all, we'll just chat a wee bit about you, if that's okay. Let's talk a wee bit about you. So where do you come from originally? Because it's not a Scottish accent that you have.
No, it's not. I'm originally from Liverpool, but I have lived in Scotland for, it'll be, 38 years this year, so it's a long time, just a bit more than half my life. So but all my family is still in Liverpool, so I still have a lot of connections and spend as much time there as I can. But I'm now here, and loving living in Scotland. I think it's a lovely place.
And you've never lost that Liverpool accent either.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Sometimes I think I have, and then but somebody can always, meeting someone for the first time, they'll always say, "Oh, what kind of accent is that?" "Oh yeah, I can hear it. I can hear it now. It's a Scouse accent." So that pleases me, because I am from Liverpool, and I like being from Liverpool. So that's important, that I keep that little teeny bit of identity as well.
So you I suppose just going back, I mean, obviously you and I have known each other for a wee while now. Well, in fact, we knew each other before you started writing, because
Yes.
we were connected in a previous life.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a wee bit about how our paths crossed in the past then?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I had been writing my book for about 3 or 4 years, and then coming near to the end of it, I was desperately finding out how I could, how I would be able to get some help to get it published. I belong to a local writers group here in Bells Hill, and one of our other authors, Teresa Watson, she introduced me to Kim. So I sent Kim an email and told her what I was doing and what have you. And then eventually we kept missing each other. I think at first, Kim, didn't we? We'd be phoning, I'd miss you and you'd miss me and what have you. And we eventually we had a long chat one afternoon. And then I think it just by accident, I think I said, because I'm now retired, but I think I said, but I worked in the railway industry for many years. And of course, Kim jumped in, "Oh, I worked in the railway industry." And it turns out we were both in HR, and we had a lot of folk, sort of common friends and colleagues and what have you. So it kind of sparked a whole other conversation, didn't it, Kim?
Yep.
So it was lovely. And then of course going to the indie authors cafes in Waterstones, I met another of the authors, John McGee, who was also a former railway person. So it was nice.
Yep, that's the thing. I think there's when you go back or you start talking to people, that's the whole idea of 6 degrees of separation. We can usually find that there are people that know people that know people. So, so when and I did recall that I did remember you because I knew that you'd worked in this welfare team at the past, so it was looking after other people. And at that point, you had your site.
I had a bit, yes, I did have some sight. It was never perfect, but it was good enough to get me, get me about, as long as the light was good. And being in the railway industry, of course, it was easy to get from A to B because I just jumped on a train and got met at the other end by a manager who would take me to where I needed to go. So it never stopped me. I travelled the length and breadth of Scotland with my job, and my failing sight never stopped me doing that for a long time. Which was good. You just find alternative ways of doing things. Some of my colleagues would have a hire car to take them to where they needed to go. Well, I had the train, which was lovely because I could sit and listen to an audio book on the train while I was traveling.
Yeah.
So
I want to kind of just ask a wee bit about the fact that you knew you were going to lose your sight really from an early age, because yes. It is a genetic condition that your family all have. Do you want to tell us a wee bit about that?
Yes, I can. I do remember even from being really, really young, and I'm talking about maybe under 5 or 6-ish or something. My mum and 3 of her sisters, who all lived I beg your pardon, two of her sisters and a brother, we all lived relatively close when we were younger, that they had very poor eyesight. My mum never used to go out on her own, and she didn't have a guide dog in those days. And I remember that we used to get taken to what was then St. Paul's Eye Hospital, a big, quite famous eye hospital in Liverpool, that we went to every year around about September time. I remember that because it was always around about my birthday, and I wasn't best pleased at getting dragged to spend a day in hospital on my birthday sometimes. But anyway, we would go down there, have specialists come and look at us, come and look in our eyes, put drops in, poke and prod and what have you, and then ask if they could bring some students in, because our eye condition was quite rare. It wasn't a rare condition, but our symptoms were atypical symptoms. In other words, it affected us differently from the norm for retinitis pigmentosa. Our peripheral vision was reasonably good, whereas our central vision was what went first, and it's normally the opposite for this particular condition. So, as I say, we went every year to get sort of looked at and tested, and oh yeah, there's no change, and there's still nothing we can do, so we'll see it again next year, kind of thing. And we did that for very many years. So it was always, although it was only once a year, there was always, it was always very obvious that there was something going on. And then I can't remember what age it was when I kind of realised, well, my mum and my Irene and Dottie and Uncle John, they can't see, so this is probably what's in store for us. And it wasn't a sort of a blow to the chest at anything moment. It was just kind of, well, this is it. This is our family. This is who we are, and this is what we are. And this eye condition is, for me anyway, I always think this is what makes me the person that I am. It's just the way it is. And I think accepting that is I'm not saying it's maybe easy, but I'm saying it's a huge, big part of being able to deal with it. I don't think you can do something until you'd accept it.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it, Lynn, isn't it? I mean, it's acceptance of a situation, even if you don't like something. Accepting something and liking something are two different things.
Absolutely.
So, but being able to accept. So you said you were still probably quite young then when you realised this was going to happen to you.
Yes. Yeah. But I could see reasonably well then. I mean, I can remember even that I used to be able to read, a comic. In my day, it was the Bunty and the Mandy and that kind of thing. And you know how small, that kind of print is. But I used to have to hold it right up to my nose to read it, but I could read it. And then as the years went by, it was, oh, well, I've got to forget that kind of thing. And I could read printed books for a little while, and then it was probably when I was in my late teens, maybe early 20s, I started to have to use a little handheld magnifier to read even, bigger print. Comics and newspapers was something that was just no longer going to be feasible. But for my work, for the first good few years in the railway, I just used a small handheld magnifier to help me, which again, it was a bit, it slowed things down a little bit. I couldn't do anything in a hurry because it took a lot longer for me to even just to read, a form in or something like that. And in those days there wasn't, all the technology that we have nowadays, so everything was done manually. But I was determined this was what I wanted to do, so I was going to do it by whichever means I needed to do it.
Yeah. So do you think is that determination, I suppose, like we said, the acceptance that there's things that you can't change, isn't it, that you can't change?
Yeah.
And then the determination that you're going to find a way still to do things and have, a good quality of life. Then is that really, do you think that's the secret to just keeping going and not just going, well, there's nothing I can do and giving up?
Yes, no, I think so. I think, as I say, acceptance, which fortunately for me, and I'm very grateful that I don't take any credit for it, but I just accepted it, maybe because it was so prevalent in my family. It wasn't as if suddenly I was told, oh, by the way, you've got this and you're going to lose your sight. It was just there. So it was like a natural progression. I never had any sort of inkling that it was going to be any different. So acceptance, I think, is very important, and is maybe the most important factor. But then determination that, okay, well, I can't do this that way, but could I still do it? And then if so, what alternative ways could I manage it? I mean, many years ago in 1994, I always wanted to do a skydive. And Stuart and I were out for a drive around Dundee Way, and we just happened to pass by accident Errol Flying School, and there was just a big notice on the outside. I think it was an Easter weekend, funnily enough, but it was closed. And I said, right, we'll keep a note of that. So we went, I think I phoned them, I contacted them, and I told them I'd always wanted to do this. So they said, oh yeah, come up and have a chat, blah, blah, we can talk about that. So we went up, and then they asked about my health and what have you. Said, oh no, I'm fit as a fiddle, everything's fine. I says, I've got poor eyesight. And he said, do you wear glasses? I said, no, I'm actually registered. I was registered partially sighted, then not blind. So he sort of looked at me as if, and I said, oh, but I'll be fine, I can see a little bit. And he went, well, if you can get a letter from your doctor to say you're fit to do it, we'll take it on. Otherwise, I'm sorry, but we can't. So I went to my doctor, and he just laughed at me. He said, Lynn, I can't possibly give you a letter to say you can jump out of an aeroplane. So I thought, oh no. So I don't know who it was, whether it was the school themselves or somebody said to me, what about a tandem jump? Which I'd never heard of before. So I looked into that, and I thought, oh, beauty, I'll go for that. So I went back up to the school, and they said, oh yes, we can do that. So the bottom line was I did it. And I managed to raise, I think I raised about £600 for Charles, the Children's Hospice.
Wow.
Which at that time it wasn't actually open. It was just, I think it opened about a year later or something. This was 1994 I did this. It was over in the one over in Fife, not the one in Glasgow, Rachel House.
Right.
So it was great, because, as I say, I did something that I'd always wanted to do, and I managed to raise some money for a great charity as well. So
wow.
I think it's that if somebody tells you can't do something, now there will be things obviously that certain people with certain disabilities can't do. I'm never going to drive a racing car, for example. So, but that's fine. But if there's other things you can say, well, I could do that. I'll just have to do it in, using an alternative method. So, that's something as well, that you have to be positive, and you have to be, don't give up. I think is quite a strong message to get. Don't give up if at first, you can't manage it. Think of another way to do it. Or think of something, that would, that is every bit as important and special to you, and do that instead. There are always, I've always said the greatest obstacle that stops anyone doing anything is themselves. You have to really want to do it, and you have to believe that you can do it, and you have to be determined to do it. And I think if you can overcome then you're going a long way to fulfilling your goals.
I mean, I think that's just amazing. Although I wonder whether if your sight's not so great and you can't see just maybe how high up you are, maybe that was made jump out the plane a wee bit easier.
Well, I've got a confession. I don't even know if I've told anybody this, but for the first few seconds, I did close my eyes, because the guy I was tied to, who was a big hunky expat trooper, by the way, so that was a bonus. I said, what will happen when we first jump out? And he says, we'll probably tumble a few times. And I thought, oh, I don't want to be able to see that. So I shut my eyes tight. And then when I opened them, and then at that point, the chute opened, and obviously everything just slowed down. And I could see, as I say, a fair bit then. I wouldn't say it wasn't brilliant, but I could see the coastline, because it was between Dundee and Perth. And it was just like being suspended in the air. It was like nothing else on earth. And I went, oh my goodness, this is just wonderful. And it was almost like you wished you could kind of just stop there, but you're just floating to the ground all the time. And then, but it was truly wonderful. And as I say, I mean, I could do it again. I don't want to do it again, but I wouldn't obviously have the same pleasure, because I wouldn't see, what I could see then. And it was truly wonderful.
Oh, amazing! Well done. That's just such a great story. And I think the other thing I'd like to kind of pick up on is, in terms of if we're giving people any hope, because like you said, I mean, at the moment people are struggling because there's lots of things that they can't do just now, because there's, you know, we can't get out, we can't do the normal day-to-day things, you know. And you were just saying, well, you've got to, you know, you find a way to adapt and do something. Like here you are, we're managing to have a, you know, so
Yes.
Ina had great plans for running this kind of wellness festival. We're going to be in Kilmerdunny House and having a ball there with lots of stuff, and you know, we've managed to redo so, you know, this in a different way, and we're just all correct on Zoom. So, you know, so having, so I suppose that's the thing, is the acceptance, the determination, finding a new way to do something. But I know for you as well, there's another element that I think that's quite important, and that's humour.
Oh, right, yes, yeah, definitely. You have to be able to laugh, and you have to be able to laugh at yourself as well.
Yeah, and that's what I think, that's the thing that we sharing humour and just being able to laugh can just help so much, you know, just with coping with things. And I think that maybe, is it something to do with being a Scouser then, that you think that you've got that sort of sense of humour? Because there's a lot of folks that I know that are Scousers, and they've all got a real, you know, there's a real kind of camaraderie and a ability to laugh at themselves, I think, and it comes out across.
I do definitely think that's part of it. I really do. And I mean, as I say, I come from quite a large family, although there's just, you know, me and my two sisters, and there was my mum and dad. So there was 5 in the house. But as I said, my mum's sisters and relatives lived close by. So there was always a lot of us, you know, and there was some characters amongst us. I was more of an observer and one who joined in with the laughter rather than the witty one that could make people laugh. But no, we like to, you know, we all like to laugh. My 2 sisters and my cousin, who are all blind, we have only just recently, through this crisis, been able to get together on FaceTime in a group video. So we do that at 3 o'clock every day, which is great, because, you know, we have a little chat, and then we'll just start talking about things from the past, or anything and everything that just makes us laugh. So yeah. I think, but I do, just your point from earlier, I do think, coming from Liverpool as well, I think we are, you know, quite amiable characters, and quite willing to laugh at ourselves.
Yep. And I think definitely that whole, you know, just being able to laugh in the face of adversity.
Yes,
isn't it? That's the thing. It's being able to look and go, right, okay, do you know what, this, you know, and finding something that's just going to kind of lift your mood a wee bit, because it's, you know, thinking just now, like I said, we're all having to face challenging times, and if you're feeling really low, it's hard then to even find something, find the what's the word I'm thinking, finding the energy to then to do something different, you know, because when you're low, you know, energy wise, it's just like, oh, there you go. But laughter, I mean, and having a bit of a laugh and finding something that's humorous can just lift your moods, and that just then changes your whole energy around as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, just totally lifts you up. You're a totally different demeanor if you can, even if it's just a smile that you can manage, and you can say, oh, yeah, so, oh, I enjoyed that, or what have you. You know, but there's nothing like a hearty belly laugh, I have to say. It's wonderful. And we do manage that. And like you were saying before, especially when it's, you know, me and my two sisters are together, we usually, it's always ourselves that we're laughing at, and think daft things that we've done, because we haven't been able to see, you know. I mean, my sister fell out of a shop door once because she thought she was leaning on the glass window and it was the door, but the door was open and she fell out. And, I mean, that was years ago. We still have that. So just things like that.
Yeah, I know that, and I know that when we spoke was because I think it was possibly the day that you were in Waterstones, and we were chatting, and you were talking about some of the silly things that are the different, you know, that happen when you've got, you know, 3 blind women all trying to kind of like get around and do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It can be. We cause chaos sometimes, but as I say, we always manage to have a laugh. So.
Yeah, and you know, it's lovely as well when you know, you've got, we saw Jeannie earlier. If anybody was you know, before we kind of came on live onto the Facebook group, Jeannie is your guide dog. And how is she doing now? Because she hadn't been well for a wee while, hasn't she?
No, this time last year she was just getting over heart surgery. So, and I you know, I thought the guide dogs might have retired her after that, because she was 9.5 at that time. But she made a remarkable recovery. She's just an amazing dog, but she has slowed down a little bit now, but then so have I, so that kind of works out quite well. So, but she's still working, she's still working okay. But I will get a new dog before long, and then Jeannie will just be a big pet for us, which will be lovely. She's
So how is it then? When you got Jeannie. So did you get her when she? What age was she when she
she
came
was
to you?
she was just under 2. They usually around about 2 or a little bit, a month or so either side of that. By the time they've done all the training with the puppy walker, and then they go to guide dogs to do the sort of the final training, and then they pair them up with somebody who's on the list who's waiting. I don't think people realise how the sort of the pairing mechanism works, because they don't just give the next person on the list, the next dog that comes along. I had to be assessed for like my lifestyle, even my height and my walking speed and things like that, so that they could get a dog that would suit, my lifestyle. I used to travel back and forth to Liverpool about two or three times a month when I first got Jeannie. So they wanted a dog that was, they had to make sure that I had a dog that was, lots of energy, and also was not afraid to be on trains or public transport, or did, worked well in a crowd and that kind of thing. Whereas another dog might come through and it might be perfectly, technically perfectly fine to be a guide dog, but it might not be so good on, say, public transport, or it might not have loads of energy that it wants to be out, endless hours every day working kind of thing. So they might give that to not necessarily an older person, but maybe a person who maybe just wants to be able to go to the shop, a couple of times a day and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So it's quite a complex process that they go through. But when you think about it, it makes sense. That I was given at that time, as I say, I've had it nearly 10 years, is it, Stuart?
Yeah.
Nearly 10 years. So at that time, I used to love, long walks and what have you. I still do to an extent, just not quite as much. But I had loads of energy and I walked fast, and she had loads of energy and liked to be in control, and liked to be sort of, finding a way through crowds and what have you. So she was thought ideal for my requirements, and I couldn't agree more. As from the minute I saw her, I went, oh, she's just wonderful. She's amazing. So so she's been at my side ever since. Through some pretty dire times as well. When I wasn't going through a good time myself, she was always there, giving me comfort and support. It was wonderful.
And that's the other thing that Lynn, that because I mean, for MD, please go and check out Lynn's book. It's called Bit by Bit, and it's a story not just of the sight loss, but that you had you had quite a bit of tragedy and difficult things to look at, to cope with in your family life too.
Yes, I did. It would be late 2005. My dad was diagnosed with cancer, just totally out of the blue, and told it was terminal, and there was only a few months for him left. And just a month after that, my mum was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So when my dad passed away, there was all the grief and the sadness and the shock, but there was also my mum, what's going to come of my mum. And there was a few suggestions from different people. Your mum will need to go in a home, because my mum was blind as well, of course. So the three of us decided, we would just look after her, so she could remain in her own home. So that's what we did for 9 years. And as her condition deteriorated, it became more and more distressful to see, but also more and more difficult to care for her and what have you. But we determined, we were going to do it, and that was all there was to it. So we just did what we needed to do. With help, we did have help. We had carers coming in and what have you, but we were, determined that one of us would be there at all times with her. So that's what we did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure there are people who might watch this and recognise that they've had to deal with a family member with losing somebody to cancer. I mean, I lost my mum last year, or facing another family member struggling with Alzheimer's or dementia. And I think it's difficult enough to imagine coping with all of that when you then have your sight and everything to be able to kind of cope with things and all the different challenges that come up when you've got to face these things about, you know, appointments and different people to speak to and information to find and all sorts of things. But when you're having to do that blind and with, you know, your family all, you know, blind, you know, and your mum then, you know, losing some of her cognitive abilities and
Yes.
still being blind, that must really be an even bigger challenge then.
Yes, well, yeah, definitely was. But it was only as we were we didn't think, oh my God, this is going to be awful because blah, blah. We just took everything as it come, dealt with things as they were, and found, as I was saying before, found different ways around doing things, you know, even from, you know, the various medication that she had. Although the carers come in the morning and give her a medication, there was some others she had to have throughout the day. And we would you know, with the pill pots and what have you, and we'd say, right, these tablets are here, these are there, and you had to be very, very, you know, strict with that, so that we obviously, you know, knew what was where and what was to be given when and what have you. So we just found ways that we would, you know, be able to cope that would be suitable for us. Somebody else might come in and say, oh, what have you got that like that for? And we would say, leave it, because we know exactly what's what. And that's how we sort of manage things like that as well. But yeah, and again, we did have, you know, believe it or not, even through the darkest times, we did have quite a lot of laughs as well at some of the pickles that we got ourselves into and the mishaps and what have you. But you know, we got through it, and well, we got through it. So, and as difficult it was, as difficult as it was, we were all. I think it helped a lot that being three of us, and we were all in it together, and we knew we were. And when one was maybe on a lower ebb, then the others would be, you know, cheer them up and would rise and what have you. So that's a big help as well.
And I think that's, you know, that's what we're saying about, you know, resilience. Resilience is something that you actually, you know, that you can actually acquire resilience through overcoming hardship and
Absolutely.
difficult times.
Yes.
It's not something that we've all got. I think of it as a bit like, it's like elasticity, you know, it's about how far you can go with before you break, you know, it's that kind of thing. So if it's elastic band, you know, you can stretch so far. Every single one of us have got a point at which we can't stretch anymore, that it just feels like, oh goodness, it's too much.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, I think, that when even you're pushed to the absolute limits of what you think you can cope with, you do, you know, if you find a way to kind of come back, and that then offers you, and it's that recognition afterwards that you actually survived something that you didn't think that you could, that you realise that, well, do you know what, I came through that, and that's what builds resilience. That's what gives you then the ability to cope with things with when something else comes along, knowing that you've managed to cope before.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Because you know, sometimes if we're having more of a bit more of a serious chat, and we'll talk about different things that happened, and we'll say, I don't know how we got through that, but then you go, but we did, and here we are, and you know, we're still in one piece, kind of thing, and in a lot of ways stronger for it.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that I wanted to kind of, you know, just leading a wee bit into how my understanding and experience with that as well. Because I mean, you know, obviously that we lost Calum, our son, to meningitis, and it's what, 13 years this year, since he died. And that very, very sudden, you know, because, you know, like say with something like meningitis, it's, you know, it was so quick. It was, you know, within hours of him waking with a headache, he was on a ventilator in hospital. So, you know, it was different from maybe experiencing, you know, a loss with an illness that you've got, you know, you're watching that deteriorate over a period of time. I mean, like with meningitis, it was shock. It's almost like a, you know, a car accident or something, because it was that, you know, that quick. And I would say as well, you know, that, you know, if anybody was to ask, you know, do you think that it is your worst nightmare, you know, come true for something like that, you know, losing a child, for a parent sitting there just now, then that's definitely the thing that everybody would fear the worst. But I suppose it's kind of living proof that, you know, here we are. I mean, I've got a good life. We're happy. You know, we bounced back, and we're able to cope with things. So even the things that you think that you can't cope with, and you think will completely break you, I think there's always a way to come out of that, and and recognise that, you know, when, you know, like it's hard to do it right at the time when you're in the midst of something. So
Yeah.
if anybody is watching this and they are grieving right now because they've lost somebody close to them, I'm not saying, yeah, just put a smile on your face and it's all going to be better, because that's not the case. It takes time. But maybe one of the things for me was having hope that life would get better. And that's then an understanding that you have survived things in the past. They've not been huge upsets to your world, but you've dealt with difficult things in the past. Therefore, and they got better, and you came through that. So therefore, life will get better, and just having hope that life can be better again.
Yeah.
And I wonder, Lynn, for you, you know, with, you know, me saying about having hope, when and hope's a big factor for definitely for me, you know, about looking at things going forward. When you knew that your sight was going to go, there wasn't any hope that your sight would, you know, would come back, or, you know, that was it. So there wasn't hope in that way.
No.
But do you think then that was there any point during that time, or when you're, you know, when during your time of your dad passing away and your mum, you having the difficulty, that you kind of lost hope yourself that life would be better?
Sometimes I felt like this was never going to get better. And sometimes I felt overwhelmingly like, how has this happened to us? Why has this happened to us? How did we come to be in this place that we're in now, that felt so dark and so desperate that there wasn't any way out? And I think it was only after my mum passed away, which, you know, was after 9 years of you know, her decline, that we could start to think, or I could start to think, my life is going to be very different now, because my life had been totally transformed for those years. I spent most of my life down in Liverpool rather than, you know, in my own home here. And it took a little while to get used to that. Suddenly my life was different. I didn't think it was better, you know, because my mum had gone, but it was different. And then I started to think, oh, actually, I can plan to do X, Y, Z now, because I couldn't make any plans before, because it was, you know, I'd come home maybe after say even just a long weekend, but then I was back there 3 days later. So it, you know, that was my life back and forward. And it was when it changed, and I started to see a little bit of sort of light, that actually I can now live my life the way I want it rather than the way I need to do it. And that's it brought, it was almost like a lifting of you know, a little sort of cloak of despair, if you like. I don't know if I'm being over dramatic saying that, but it was like being lifted. And I could get back to being, oh, these are the things I used to like to do. And oh gosh, I'd forgotten how much pleasure I got from doing this and what have you. And I know, you know, my sisters and I still spoke every day on the phone, and I know they felt the same. You know, they would say, oh, gosh, it's strange getting up and I haven't, you know, the first thing in your mind isn't, right, I need to get up and I need to get to blah, blah, and I need to do this and I need to do that. It's, you know, I can now start doing the things, you know, for me, instead of, you know, instead of being the things that I need to do. So yeah, that definitely, you know, and it did take a good while to sort of start thinking now, you know, it's almost like this is my new life or my next stage in my life, and it's good, and it's going to be good, and I'm going to make it good, because we all deserve that. So everybody does.
And that was kind of our, as a family, that was our motto as well, really, I think, after Calum passed away, because you know, I said early on, and people actually thought I'd completely lost my mind when I said this, that we were going to be happy, you know, as a family. I said we were going to be happy. You know, in the early days, I couldn't have told you how that was going to happen, because I felt, you know, the furthest from happiness I'd ever been in my entire life. Because, like you were saying, Lynn, there is a real dark and despair that surrounds you when something difficult happens. But it was, for me, it was the kind of this. It was something to strive for. I think it was that, you know, that we can get back to that at some point, and just finding the way that we could. That for me, it was kind of trying to, I had this vision of it. I had to live my life the best I could to honour Callum.
So,
I
yeah.
wanted, I wanted him. If I thought, I still talk to him. I still, for me, I'm still connected to him. He's, although he's not here physically, that bond of love that we have with everybody that we're connected to doesn't just die. It doesn't disappear. It stays. So whether it's your mum or your sister or your son, that bond is strong. And I felt for me it was about keeping that connection, and that if he could see me, I wanted him to recognise us as the happy family that we were, because otherwise there would be more victims to something. And that takes, I suppose it takes a bit of determination, it takes a bit of courage. It also just, like you say, finding ways then to cope with the dark days. And for me, that was when I really started to write. I had always kind of written a journal. I'd kept journals on and off over the years. But just after Calum died, that was for me, I started to write how I was feeling. That was, it was the things that I wouldn't necessarily even share out loud to speak to somebody, the stuff that was in my head that I didn't really want to say to somebody, because you didn't want to put that burden onto somebody else, but I could write it. And I would sit, sometimes in the early hours of the morning when I couldn't sleep, and there'd be times when it would just be, I would be in tears, and if I go back to the journals and you kind of look at them, going back to the time, I would see, some of the pages are actually quite tear splattered, where the ink, where I was just pouring out how I was feeling. But I think that's one of the things though about being able to let it work through the emotions that are going on, and being able to find a way to let those emotions out. So writing for me was definitely it was first of all a release to kind of pass stuff through, and then laterally it became a bit more of a pleasure, because what I was able to do then was also the days that I felt that I was a wee bit lighter and there was something good that I could see, I was then able to actually put up, write something positive in the journal. And I used to feel that I was writing to Calum, but initially that was me, that was my connection. It was like I was writing to him and having these conversations. And I could start to see some of the shift in my mood. Because I was able to read, what I was writing. And that was definitely a way for me, first of all, just to kind of vent how I was feeling. And then I kind of moved into the kind of, I'm a great lover of gratitude. So I then started to really kind of concentrate on what I was grateful for in that day. And I suppose it's that kind of whole thing about counting your blessings, it's that, and I remember even being told when I was young, it's like, if you might have some, but my mum would say to me, well, Laura, at least you've got food on the table, you're not like these starving wains in Africa that don't have anything to eat, so it'd be something like, I suppose it was something like that, even recognising, okay, what am I grateful for today? What have I got? Okay, I've got up, I had to still have my daughter, I'd managed to get out of bed and get my clothes on, I'd had then a cup of tea or a conversation with somebody that had lifted my mood, I'd gone out for a walk, sometimes it's just simple things.
Yes, just a little build up.
Yep. And for me just now, thinking there's a lot of people probably really struggling with their mental health, because we're now right at this point kind of stuck and confined into the house. All the things people said, wouldn't it be great if I didn't have to go anywhere and I could just sit here and I didn't have to rush about, and suddenly this is where we are and we're all going, oh my goodness, I'm going crazy. So maybe, for me, like writing down how you're feeling just now is a good way, just journaling how you're feeling is a good way to get some of the stuff out if you're really feeling low, and then starting to just think about, okay, so what am I grateful for today? Finding 3 things. For me, finding 3 things every day you're grateful for is a really good way to kind of to start to lift your mood. And have you ever been kind of start, did you ever do that as well, and kind of think about, well, okay, all this stuff's going wrong and we've had difficult times, but here's what we've got, we're still...
Absolutely, always. And as I say, I think me and my sisters were all very similar as well, and we're all really relatively easygoing and what have you. But sometimes at the end of a hard day, if my mum was particularly unwell, and the 3 of us were in the house together, which didn't happen all that often, but once mum was settled for the night, because she was in a hospital bed in the lounge for the last 3 years of her life, so and whoever was staying with her slept on the couch, but at the end of the day we would just sit down and think, oh, she's settled now, she seems to be okay, so that means we can settle down and we can be okay, and we'd have a cup of tea and a chocolate bar or a cake or something, because we all had very sweet tooths, which we blame my mum for, because she was a big fan of cakes and goodies. So but you would say, oh, even after the most horrendous of days, we would go, oh, isn't this nice? Just a little bit of peace for half an hour or however long it was going to last, and the three of us are here together, and we could have a chat about normal things, rather than just focusing on what we had to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even in this, in this crisis just now, haven't got a massive back garden, but we've got a garden that we can, over the last few days, it's been nice, and we just sit out and go, isn't it lovely that at least we've got, the garden to sit in, and, I've been doing a few little bits of exercises out on the patio and what have you, just silly little, like warm-up exercises that you would do when you go to an aerobics class.
Right.
You're doing things like that in the garden. So, on other times, we're not great gardeners, we keep it kind of tidy and we like to have it nice, but, we've started to sort of order some plants and get them in the garden and put them in pots and get them looking nice, and think, oh, well, at least we can get out and we can do this, and nice to be outdoors. So you have to, I think sometimes you have to look for the good. It doesn't always drop in your lap, but you have to look for it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, sometimes, I know when I've said to people, I used to run happiness clubs, and, the folk would come and they would say, okay, how do they want to be happier, and we'd be talking about, well, you have to find something good, and folk would say, but there's nothing good happened today, and I think there must be something, no, absolutely nothing, it was like, and you go, well, like, think about one thing, start to, and it's amazing, I think, when you start to really focus your attention on where is that one thing, and if it is, well, you know what, I even enjoyed watching something on TV, or I tuned into Facebook for a while, and I got to see, and hear about Lynn, and just that, that might be a good thing for today.
Yeah. As you say, it could be anything. It could be the smallest thing, and and sometimes it'll take somebody to point something out to you, to say, actually, yeah, that was nice, or that did bring a little smile to my face or something. But we are, without doubt, going through really dark times just now. But we have to. We've got no option. We've got to do what we have to do, and we've got to get through it as best we can. And that's all we can do, isn't it?
Yeah. And like you say, it's created an opportunity for us all to kind of learn new technology, all figuring out how to work Zoom. I mean, I was laughing though when you were talking about doing FaceTime with your sisters and you're all blind. It's like, and you wonder, it's like,
I know. Well, but I mean, we think. I've only had my iPad for a few years. I got it, to write my book. So I just had no interest in technology or learning anything. And then suddenly this whole world opened up to me. So I could FaceTime, or I could text, or I could email and what have you. But then with this lockdown, I was thinking, it'd be nice if we could all speak together. And I think I asked somebody, and it was like, duh, of course you can do that. Well, what you're asking a stupid question like that for? And I said, yeah, well, how do you do it? Well, you just go blah, 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 blah. And I'd say, slow down. Speak to me as if I'm an idiot, because when it comes to technology, I am. But I managed to do it. So for us, that was just a huge, big achievement. It was somebody else would think it was nothing, but we think it's amazing, and we love it. We love our get-togethers every day.
Yep.
So, it's great.
Yep, I think it's fantastic what you're managing to do. And I suppose, is that the thing about technology changing though, must have made your life a bit easier then, and life easier for people who are visually impaired now? Is it, the iPad, for example, just,
yes.
Is it...
Absolutely, 100%, in fact 1000%, because my iPad, although we're talking just now, there's nothing any different from a normal iPad, but when I've finished with yourself and I'm doing something else, I will put on my voiceover facility, and every single command, every keystroke will be spoken back to me. Now I couldn't go on Facebook or anything if I didn't have that technology. So it allows me to do anything that anyone else can do on, with all the technology kind of stuff. And the things that I don't do, it's because I've got no interest in doing.
Yep.
I didn't need to know about Zoom or about FaceTime group chats or what have you until we were put in this situation. So being able to say, oh yeah, I can do that. It might take me a little while to learn how to do it, but yeah, it is possible. Whereas without this technology, it just wouldn't have been feasible for me to do.
Yep.
So it's amazing. And of course, I get all my books on audio as well, which is just fantastic. So, you know, that's a huge, big plus, having a little digital book,
Yep.
which is great. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I mean, I think I really want to commend you on writing your book, because there are so many people out there who say they're going to write a book someday, and they don't manage it. Now's the perfect time. You know, see, honestly, people, if you're sitting home at now going, I don't know what I'm going to do, you know, and I really want to write. Well, you know, get started. You know, here's Lynn managed to do it, you know, and managed to write the book without being able to see what she was typing, you know. So, you know, if you can do it, then really anybody can.
It's anything's possible. Yeah, just put your mind to it, and want it badly enough, and then put your mind to it, and you will achieve it. That's my firm belief.
Yeah, and I think and you're just testament to that. You know, just about it's what's possible. You know, I think we can all bounce back from difficult times. You know, we can.
Yeah.
We will all bounce back from this. You know, we will be talking about this for years to come. You know, remember the time when we were all stuck at home and all we could do was, you know, was we could communicate through this and we couldn't get out. And there'll be, you know, as I said, they're predicting a baby boom. You know, so the years to come, and they'll all be saying, you know, like, what, you know, it's like, yes, you were the child of that era then. You know, so. And they'll hear all the stories that we've had to recount, you know, about all of this. But we will, you know, this thing is, we will come through this.
Yes.
And I'm seeing, I mean, like I say, I'm my glass is usually half full. You know, I'm the optimist. So I look for the positives, and there is so much kindness going on in the world just now. People are actively reaching out, they're connecting. I've had conversations with people that I haven't spoken to for ages, you know, just because they're suddenly, they spy you on, you know, so you might be on Facebook or something, and then I've got a message from them because they're just like, where they might just have clicked and liked something that you've posted. Suddenly now I'm going, oh, can we have a wee chat? Yeah, are you about on Saturday? Maybe we could have a phone call. So we are connecting. I think in a different way, it makes us think about what's really important to us. Yeah, we might all be struggling. Our businesses might be in difficult positions. Financially, we might be struggling. But I mean, I've just looked. There's I'm in Bishopbriggs. We've got a couple of Bishopbriggs groups. And one of the local shop owners has just posted a message today just saying, please, if there's anybody who's out there and you're struggling, you know, financially, please don't be embarrassed. If you need even some basic essentials, please message me and I'll see what I can do to help.
Lovely, isn't it?
You know, so so this is the thing. I think that we are, you know, you're seeing so many other people coming and rising up and offering help and support and hope. So
I know. It's lovely because it's not even just organisations, it's individual people as well, are just doing things off their own bat, which can make a huge difference. Just small gestures as well. I mean, they just sort of bring a little bit of hope and a bit of comfort as well. Just knowing that support's out there and people want to help and people are willing to help and to, you know, go that extra mile for you. It's lovely. You know, we had somebody collect total stranger collect a prescription for us because Stuart's isolated. He's got one of these 12 weeks what you call it, shielding letters. So we had somebody get a prescription for us the other day, which was lovely, and just left it on the step, and that was done through friends on Facebook, which was it's just lovely. Just little gestures like that make such a difference.
Yeah, that's and I think that's the thing. Then it's just about that they'd hope, you know, that it will get, you know.
Yes.
Like we were saying before, you've come through tough stuff. If anybody who's watching this, you know, you've got 100% success rate so far of surviving the tough days that you've experienced. So you know, give yourself a pat in the back. You know, you've come through stuff already, and you know, we'll get through all of this. And I think, Lynn, you know, it's been great to chat with you. Really, you know, just hear some of your perspective and on life. So it's
my pleasure, Kim. Thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Oh, it's been great. I don't know, Ina, if there's been if there's any anybody's got any questions that they want to ask Lynn, or if there's anything. I've not been looking on the Facebook group because I've just kind of left that aside. So if there's anything, or if anybody's got a question, we're happy to
Yes.
happy to take them. So they can put them, if you're watching on Zoom, you can actually put them into the chat. If anybody wants to type anything, if there's folks still there, they can do that.
Well, I, for one, just wanted to say thank you so much, Lynn and Kim. Your stories are absolutely amazing. I cannot imagine losing one's eyesight and continuing and jumping out of it. I mean, oh my God. That is, you know, it makes you want to get off your backside and do things because really we can. I love the fact that you said that actually the biggest, I actually made a note of this because I'm gonna quote you on this, the biggest obstacle is ourselves in whatever we want to achieve. I think was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you have any day-to-day advice for people who are now, you know, finding themselves in a really bad situation or really bad place mentally?
I think, well, one sort of practical thing that I think is that you really need to take care of your breathing. If you can sit in a quiet space for even just a few minutes and take deep breaths and breathe in for, say, 5 and breathe out for 7 or 8, or breathe out more than you breathe in, so you're getting good fresh oxygen into your lungs. I think that really does help to calm you down. It certainly does with me anyway. As I said before, I practiced yoga for a long time, and the breathing element was a really important part of it. So I think if you can sit and just be still and breathe deeply, and let your shoulders drop, and because we all hold a lot of stress and strain in our shoulders, and if you can just sort of get yourself into a nice posture and breathe and focus on your breath, even if it's just for a few minutes each day, you know, it certainly helps me anyway.
Yeah, that's actually a good reminder. Yes, I've done yoga for a few years as well, and I do realize the more, you know, it's a bit of discipline.
Yes.
It's just being in touch with yourself and realizing, oh, my shoulders, my neck is shorter. I need to just take a moment here and catch my breath. That's true.
Yes, your breath is a very important tool. And somebody once said, it was probably one of the yoga teachers, said, well, you can live without food for X amount of days. You can live without water for maybe a few less days, but you can live without your breath just for minutes. So that's the importance of it. So use it correctly and use it to help yourself. You know, which most people just breathe in and out and that's it. It's just done automatic. But if you can focus on it for a few minutes, I believe it will help.
And what's your book about? Is it an autobiography then?
It is. It's about initially about the sort of 9-year period through my mum's Alzheimer's journey, but obviously it touches on us losing our sight and, you know, going back to our younger days and how it was then. So yeah, it's basically it's a condensed story of the difficult part of my life, but it touches on, you know, other aspects of from our younger days and what have you. So yeah, and like Kim said, I started doing it just to get all my feelings out after my mum had passed away, and then I could actually continue with this and do something that I've always wanted to do, which was write a book. It just wasn't the book that I had intended writing, but that's what it was. So, but it's got me right into the writing process, and I'm working on a novel just now.
I was going to ask, are you planning another one, or what's your next move?
I like to write poetry. I'm writing poetry just now, and some of it I put on Facebook, and some I just write for the pleasure of writing it. But I am working on a novel that I've been doing for about 1.5 years. But to be honest, at the moment, I'm feeling as if I don't have the creativity in my head at the moment. I don't know why. So that's why I'm just pottering about with a little bit of poetry writing. because I actually love the actual physical aspect of sitting at my keyboard and typing away. I find that quite soothing and relaxing as well. So yes, so there will be a novel coming your way before too long, Kim, but it might be a bit
what I was going to say there, Ina, if anybody is out there and they're interested in just having a go at writing, we've got a creative writing challenge that's going on this month, and it's free, just to get people, I get a bit creative. It's called ISORIMO, and for those that know, NaNoWriMo is the National Writing Novel in November month, and we decided we would have ISORIMO, which was the Isolation Writing Month, and we've just been doing some wee challenges about creating characters, so a creative kind of writing sort of process. So if anybody wants to kind of come along, it's still time to kind of come and join in with that if you want to get your creative juices flowing. So, because we're missing our events because we normally do our events in Washington as well, and we're kind of missing that. So, but yeah, I'll put the wee link up. I will share the link then in here for folk if they want to kind of come on and join it. So
yes, please do that, Kim. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, both of you. This was truly inspirational. I hope people got to catch up on Facebook. There are a few more events. There's one this evening on skincare, and then a couple more on mindfulness. There's a mindfulness session tomorrow morning. Then there's a confidence chat. So everyone is more than welcome to join in. And then tomorrow evening we have laughter and yoga, an online session with JoyWorks. So lots of wonderful people coming together and trying to bring a bit of brightness and smiles. So thank you very much. Hope you have a beautiful day.
Thank you. The same to you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.